parent assembly production order as well, and quantity back ordered on customer orders, in other words, stock out conditions. The ABC classification that you see right below here, right below the tax schedule code, is the classical ABC definition. There's an ABC and an X in Macola ES. And this is based on ranking of the items by sales volume, by period cost, or by usage quantity over a specific period of time. And there is a report in the inventory system that you can run that will recalculate the inventory classification and allow you to update that so you can manage inventory in priority. So you can focus on your A items and make sure that they're accurate and so on. On the cost and price tab, you'll notice that Macola is kind of unique in that it displays all three types of costing. Now, we're going to come back to costing and talk about those methods in a minute, but notice that even though we might be on standard cost, and in my demo data that I used in preparing these slides, this particular demo company is on standard cost, the system also displays the average cost and the last cost. And you'll see in the inventory valuation report in a minute that we actually carry that information all the way through the system. Also on the cost price tab is the default or list price for this item, and it would be for this specific location. Notice that this is for location MA. Pricing and costing can vary by warehouse location. More on that in a minute. The pricing, by the way, is one of those topics that we really need to cover in a separate discussion. It can be very complex or it can be very simple, and we can show you how that can be controlled. The purchasing tab in item location holds the instructions for purchasing this item if it's a purchased item, obviously. Some of the information would apply to not only purchased items but manufactured items. I'm referring to the reorder points. But here you'll see things like this is a little confusing, the min-max, which is the reorder level and order up to level, okay, not to be confused with the purchase order minimum and purchase order maximum. The purchase order minimum is the smallest quantity that a vendor will allow you to purchase at any given time, and a PO maximum would be the maximum quantity. In this case, this item has a unit of measure pounds, so the maximum is 40,000 pounds because that's what goes on one truck. So, but the reorder level, and on some customers we've actually modified the screen and put in parentheses min, and order up to level max is what can control a lot of your inventory decisions regarding replenishment. Notice too that there's a purchase order lead time, and this is what the system will use in recommending dates for purchase orders, whether you're using the inventory control auto create unreleased POs or MRP. It's going to look at the purchase order lead time as one of the elements of decision making. And this is also where you would include safety stock if an item has safety stock. Whoops, let me come back here. Oops, going too far. Notice too that on this screen we also have the cycle count code. We're going to be talking about the physical and cycle count process here in a minute, and we'll actually be using this item as one of the things that we're going to talk about. The next screen holds accumulators. These are just system maintained, and they're based on activity in the system, whether it's sales of units, usage by units, how many were scrapped, how many were rejected, if this was something in, say, manufacturing that was rejected out of shop floor, for instance, how many were returned via the RMA module, and then sales dollars and cost dollars, period to date, year to date, and a last year comparison. can also tell you the active orders, how many were last sold, and the date that it was last sold. So it's pretty valuable information when you're looking for that type of stuff. Moving on to inventory valuation. A little bit about costing methods. The costing method is determined when you set up the system, and it's established in the inventory management package setting. You choose average, standard, or last. The system also has FIFO and LIFO available, but not if you are using any of the Macola manufacturing applications. That's just a system limitation, and most companies aren't utilizing that for much information. It is available if you need it. We can still drill down on it, but ordinarily our clients are choosing average or standard. And we're going to cover the stock status valuation report here as well, and you'll see how that gives us all of those costed methods on that extended valuation report. When you run that report, it can be run for a given item, range of items, a particular warehouse, or the printing sequence can actually be chosen to be printed for all warehouses and then segregate items by warehouse. So there's a lot of ways that you can run this. Ordinarily, I see our clients running them for a specific warehouse and sorting by item. This is a sample of the stock status valuation report. As you can see at the individual item totals of their valuation based on the quantity on hand, and displaying that in terms of both standard, average, and last cost. And you can see the wide variation in this company's inventory value as it relates to standard, average, and last. It would hardly make any sense that average cost would be $20 million and last cost was 32. But as you can see, this can tell you whether or not your standards are overall in line with the actual or the FIFO cost, which is really the test for audit purposes. Moving on to location control. First, let's talk a little bit about warehouses. The warehouses can be used for a couple of different purposes, and as it relates to location control, within Macola there are two levels of location control. The first is the warehouse, okay, which can be used for physical locations where there are different addresses or different buildings, if you will. And then there's bin control. We're going to talk about bin control in just a second. But if you need to use a location to segregate inventory because you do not want it to be included in the overall valuation because it's part of its customer returns, let's say, or it's consigned inventory or vendor-owned inventory, or it has to be quarantined, or it's rework or non-conforming materials of some kind, or by definition, if you use Macola's receiving inspection, you will need a separate receiving inspection warehouse and potentially a material review board or MRB location to have items held there awaiting disposition. There are some pretty significant implications for using multiple warehouses. So I really want you to think hard before you set up a warehouse.